please be seated.
All right, Dr. Mainland is back, as you can see, and I think we're examining.
Mainland, Defense Exhibit 142 is the between Mark Jensen and Detective Rep. A little greater detail.
Yes, I did.
And seen, you hadn't looked at that at least. Is it fair to say that is interrogating? Well, it's an interrogation by Detective Ratsberg and Mark Jensen, correct?
He's asking questions. I mean, depends on how you define an interrogation. He's
Sure.
asking questions of him and trying to get an answer out of him. So if that's how you define interrogation, yes.
Well, and Mark Jensen is answering his questions, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And Detective Ratsberg asks a number of questions, trying to get answers regarding the medical observations made by Dr. Chambliss in his autopsy. Fair to say?
Yes.
And I think we began page 62. Let me go to page 63. Begin with line 5. Okay. And Detective Ratsberg there says to Mark Jensen, okay, and Dr. Chambliss did an autopsy. He notices an indication of a bruise, or as he puts it, as I just showed you, a fingernail. Let me back up here. A curved yellow abrasion resembling a fingernail was present in the right interior neck in the area of the thyroid. I can't even pronounce this other word, C-A-R-T-I-L-A-G-E, of the larynx, which is about right here, okay? So he's come to the conclusion that it's an asphyxia death, okay? Answer, okay. Question at line 15, which means that basically somebody cut off her oxygen or choked her, okay? And obviously one of the people that were there were you. And going to line 20, did you smother her, Mark, or what's going on? Correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Jensen says, no, I did not. Question, you didn't touch her? Answer, no. Right?
Right.
Moving to page 64. Line 12. Detective Ratsberg continues to ask questions about the possibility of smothering, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Question. And I don't want to pull out the pictures to show you or anything like that, but if you look at the pictures we took at the scene, you can see where her nose was pushed into the pillow and curved up like that. You also see that her arm, did you touch the body after you? Answer, when I got home, yeah. Question, okay, what did you touch? Answer, I grabbed her by the shoulder. Question, Answer, and tried to shake her. Question, okay, you didn't move her body in any way, did you? Answer, I kind of rolled her. Question, rolled her. Continuing on page 65, I remember her nose coming off the pillow. Question, yeah, okay. Answer, and it didn't go back? I mean, question, right, it was perfect, just like it's broke, right? Answer, her face was in the pillow. Question, right. Answer, but that's how she was laying. I mean, it was. Those questions were asked and answered between Detective Ratsberg and Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
And that's information that, if available to Aaron Dillard, he could have used to create a false confession, correct?
I'm not sure that it was available to him.
And the question is, if available to him.
Oh, I didn't hear you say if. I thought you said is. If it were available to him, he could have made something out of it.
Okay, let's move to page 66, beginning with line 4. Question, okay, why don't you do it that way? And how did you move her? This would be the pillow. Answer, right, the pillow was here. Question, right. Answer, her nose was like that. Question, okay. Answer, I grabbed her shoulder and rolled her over. Question, okay, like this, and then her nose would have come up, or her face? Right. And then what did you do at that point? Now she's kind of facing up. Let's go like that. Did you pull her back then, or did you leave her? Answer, she just kind of rolled back. Question, she just rolled back? Okay. She just rolled, yeah, rolled back. And then what happened? I picked up the phone and called 911. Those are the questions and answers asked at page 66?
Yes.
We go to page 67. And beginning with, let me go to line 22. But what I find odd is there's a bruise on her butt and she's pushed into the pillow. Now, have you ever heard of an erotic death or autoerotic death or something like that? As an example, that would be you. Guys were playing around sexually, okay? It happens all the time. We've had deaths like that. And he goes on. That was the statements made by Detective Ratsberg. Did you find any evidence that this was an autoerotic death?
No.
Page 69, beginning with line 15. Detective Ratsberg's statement in the question beginning at line 15, page 69. We've gone through that. You found nothing disturbed in the house. Her head is pushed into the pillow. There's a bruise on her buttocks, okay? I've been thinking, maybe you guys are playing around to that, or maybe you guys had a violent argument. I don't know. I wasn't there. But there's something. You had to do something. Mark, I mean, she didn't just die naturally. We've done list of injuries are on there. The bruises I was talking about with the shin, and here's the evidence. There's also petechiae in her lungs, which indicates suffocation. You get to petechiae when somebody's suffocated. There's two places you get petechiae. One is in the eye and in the lungs, especially if there's pressure. Now, I'm not a doctor, not an expert on it. Detective Ratsberg made those statements?
Yes.
And someone reading could see that there was some sort of injury to the lungs. True?
If you call petechiae injury, I mean, that's an assumption.
Now let me go to page 74. Beginning at line 3. Question, look at the evidence that's here. I went through it kind of diligently with you. Answer, and I can't. Question, now tell me what took place. Answer, nothing more than what I've told you. Question, you didn't get on top of her? Answer, no. Question, why is that bruise there on her buttocks? Answer, I never saw her fall, but she mentioned that she hit her head and fell when she got up to go to the bathroom. Question, okay. Answer, what day would that have been? Probably it would have had to have been Wednesday. It would have had to have been Wednesday. Question, and that possibly explains the bruise, but it doesn't explain why she stopped breathing. You were the only one there. What the evidence suggests is there was a pillow over her head. You recall, you saw the nose same as I did. I got pictures of it. Answer, right. Okay. You saw the nose and put a pillow over her head. Answer, no. Those were the questions and answers at page 74.
Yes.
Moving to page 75, line 16. Well, let me start with line 14. Question, Mark, there has to be an explanation here, okay? Answer, there has to be. Question, there has to be, there has to be. And I was not there. There has to be an explanation. You were the guy there. Answer, when I left, for all I know, she was asleep exactly the way I found her when I got home. Her face was in the pillow. She rolled over on the pillow. If I remember correctly, her hand was underneath. Question, Answer, yeah, she was kind of, you know, like this. Question, her arm was actually here. I'll show you how she was, okay? Her arm is actually across her body like that. Going to page 76, line 1. Okay, and it's an unnatural position. Do you sleep when you're on your side with your arm across like that? Answer, no. Question, that's why I asked if you moved her, because her arm seems to be unnatural the way she's positioned, okay? And her nose is crunched into the pillow and she stopped breathing. Answer, but her nose was crunched into the pillow, right? Just laying there like that. Question at line 12. Right, and the nose, and again, you can take a look at the photos. I'll show you. Her nose, when you bring it back up, is bent like this. I mean, there was some type of force put on there, and the only person that could have been there to commit that type of force is you. I don't know why you can't be 100%. The only person that was there, because I was not there. I don't know what happened. Paul, and nicely, we've been talking every week or so with this. You stopped in here today to talk to me, and you know I'm a little stumped. Those are the questions and answers at page 6.
Yes.
Line 80, beginning with page 80, beginning with line 19. Question, page 80, line 19. I checked with the medical examiner on that. No, they tell me because there's petechiae in the lungs, there was some type of force or contact made because of the petechiae of the lungs. Maybe you don't know what petechiae is. Answer, I have no idea. Question, petechiae, and I'm not an expert, I'm going to get this off the top of my head here. It's basically little, like if you, moving to page 81, were to slam your finger in the door and you get the little purple things on your answer, Question, that's what it's kind of like, almost like bruising of the lungs, so to speak. Little blood clots or something. I could show you pictures of them. That's not necessary. What that indicates, in fact, here I'll show you this part, which kind of stunned me when I read it. The body shows signs of attempted medical attention. You were there was no medical attention given. Answer, right? Moving to line 12. Okay, well the doctor here is a few minor blunt trauma injuries are also identified. Okay, he's assuming there's petechiae of the lungs at this point, showing that there's attempted medical. Like an example, they take the tube and put it down your throat, petechiae of the lungs because you're actually injuring them. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I need to give Detective Ratsberg a lecture.
But putting somebody's throat wouldn't cause petechiae of the lungs, correct?
Not to.
Injury in the lung area, correct?
Yes.
And he continues on at line 20. Question, none of that was done. There is petechiae of the lungs. There's no doubt about it. I've got photos. I could show you to them. Okay, so that means there's some type of contact in the bedroom while you were there. There's no other way. Correct?
That's what it says.
Move to page 83, line 8. Question, why would she write a letter like that? That's her handwriting, right? I don't want to. Answer, yeah, I mean, it sure looks like it. We had. Question, why don't we, what I wanted to ask you to was, answer, for a week or two prior to going to see Borman.
Well, I'm wondering what is the relevance with this, of this, with respect to doctor's testimony on this examination?
One of the things you considered in assessing your suicide risk was Mr. Jensen's statements, correct?
One of the things, yes.
Including this interview, true?
I considered them. I can't say that I believed everything, but I considered them.
Well, you had to make some sort of determination as to what you wanted to believe and not believe, right?
Correct.
But you had to consider the entire statement, right?
Yes, I did.
You didn't want to just dismiss it before reading it, did you?
No.
It was my impression, though, that she had, the thrust of this was that she had made the decision to rely on the truthfulness of the account given by Mr. Dillard, and also, to a lesser extent, some admissions attributed to the accused. And I'm not sure that this is related to it's going to have to be demonstrated to me.
I would agree. Well, I could set this one. It is on a different subject and maybe less confusing if I return to it, and I'll ask the court for leave then to get back in this subject, because I think it goes to the suicide issue, which she also evaluated.
Well, I'll object to any cross-examination.
Well, he says he's going to move away from it, so let's not have a skirmish over it until it becomes necessary.
Going to page 98. And let's go to line 25, and then that's the last line there. I know there was some type of contact. Going to line 1, page 99. There had to be in the chest area, Mark. There is no question about that. And the only person that could have done that was you. I'm thinking before you left, you pushed on her maybe. Now, she was frail at the time. She was frail. You said she was labored breathing. That makes sense, and I believe that. Okay. And I know that probably happened, but she's frail. And you just innocently, I don't want to, pushed her like that. And could that have caused something? I mean, we have petechiae of the lungs. There's some contact here in the throat. There's also been an indication on the throat, as I showed you in Dr. Chambliss's report. It just did not appear there. Something and somebody had to touch her. That's the only way it could get there. There's no doubt about that. And did you push her, touch her on the throat, maybe like this? Answer, I moved her in the bed. Question, it was before her death. It happened before death. Answer, exactly. It would be that morning I was helping her sit up in bed. I was moving her in the bed. Okay, now this has to be shortly before death, not something that's, go like this and you know it will disappear. Answer, okay. And those were the questions and answers in the interview to Bratsburg and Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
And that's, if available to Mr. Dillard, that's all information that he could utilize in creating a false confession, true?
Yes.
Moving to page 134. Beginning at the top. Page 1, finishing a question. Or maybe you hit her on the throat or something, I don't know. Answer, no. Question, you didn't touch her in any way like that? Answer, no. You didn't put a pillow over her head? No. Question, okay, all right. The machine is not going to tell me different? Answer, no. The only thing I can think of that might have, if I rolled her over. Question, and that didn't happen. We know that because of her nose. There's enough there to breathe. Okay. Question, you didn't? You know, roll her over into the pillow like an infant baby and would have suffocated in the pillow. That's absolutely ruled out, okay? There's some type of shot, some type of force done. Now, her in her frail condition, it didn't take much. That's you're heavy breathing like this and you get a shot to the lungs. It's like taking the wind away. And would that stop something? Absolutely, it could have. You know, a shot, just like you know. Now it doesn't, it stings a little bit, but you know, just a good shot here, you know, you hit it, it takes your breath away. Now moving to page 135, line 1, you hit it right here in the, like you know, CPR. Question, when you go to do CPR, you're supposed to go here and measure fingers up and, you know, do your compressions. If you were to hit somebody like right there, and I forget what they call that, but that would knock the wind out of you. We've all had the wind knocked out of us. Answer, yeah.
I guess I object to this. This has nothing to do with the description that was provided by Aaron Dillard, and that was the purpose that I thought this was going into.
Well, I agree that, again, we're getting off the track here.
Well, when you're talking about CPR, that would suggest some sort of force on the chest, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
The objection is sustained.
Performed on the chest?
Objection is irrelevant.
I didn't hear what was your question.
Is CPR performed on the chest? Because there's a reference to CPR.
But my objection to that question was sustained.
Well, because Aaron Dillard is talking about doing something to the chest, and all these references to the...
You're reading from attributed to the accused, and
Actually, he's reading from a statement attributed to Detective Ratsberg that was nothing to do with Aaron Dillard's description of what occurred.
Moving to page 151, line 24. Well, let me start with line 19. Question, well, there's some TKI in the lungs, so there had to be some answer. I mean, question, you know, answer, how much? I mean, question. Well, something like that, maybe a little bit more. I don't, did you hit her in the chest at all? Did you? Moving to, oh, pages don't match.
You get down to 2?
Yeah.
You might if you can't come.
I will borrow that, I appreciate it.
Just leave that side.
Page 152, line 1, maybe shove her in the chest. Answer, not violently. Question, did you, maybe when you pulled her over this way, you pushed her back on the chest and then went back and brought her up again? You know, you would have pushed her back. Answer, it's possible in trying to horse her around to get her to roll. Question, I mean, either you did or you didn't. I mean, you were there. He talks about some shoving in the chest, correct?
Yes, some potential shoving in the chest.
And Aaron Dillard's statement talked about pressure on the chest, true?
It did.
Moving to line 22, page 152. Question, let's start back here. Did you touch her chest at all or her throat area? I mean, the throat area are pretty close, so you could touch her chest with both hands. And again, those are statements. The throat's in the neck area, correct?
Yes.
Moving to page 160. line 1. Detective Ratsberg. Mean there has to be some type of injury here to the chest and to the neck area, which I can see could almost combine that close. Okay. Then moving down to line 15, you rolled her too far over and then you pushed her back. Answer, could I? Question, on the chest and the neck area? I mean, either you did or you didn't. Answer, well, I mean, even after I pushed her back, if I left her to, it's the only thing, Paul, it's the only thing. Give those questions and answers?
Yes, I do.
Moving to page 162, line 1. Question, but that mark, it's not going to leave if, if she just rolls, her nose was severely indented. Question, something had to push it down. There's 3 things that happened. Being pushed, the nose, some type of contact here at the throat, and some type of contact here in the chest, okay? We know that happened, okay? You were the only one there. You had to do something, Mark. And what? And I don't believe it was on purpose, some type of frustration or anger. Answer, no. And that question, and that was the question of Detective Ratsberg, and the answer at page 162, lines between lines 4 and line 11?
Yes.
And Detective Ratsberg in that question says that there were 3 things that had to happen. Head being pushed, right?
Yes.
The nose,
Yes.
correct? Which he described in the previous question as being severely indented, correct?
Yes.
Some type of contact at the throat, right?
Yes.
And some type of contact at the chest.
Yes.
And those were the areas in which Aaron Dillard talked about Mark Jensen confessing to touching in his statement, right?
I think he pushed on her head and her neck and sat on her chest, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, so the sat on her chest would be some type of contact here in the chest, correct?
Yes.
And the head being pushed with the nose, that would be that part of things, correct?
Yes.
And then some type of contact here at the throat, correct?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one.
Okay. And earlier you've seen questions about the face being forced into the pillow, correct?
Yes.
That was what Detective Ratsberg was asking in his questions?
Yes.
And moving to page 211. Line 14. Question, see, like here's a picture of Julie, I need a closer one. Here's the bruise on the buttocks I was talking about. Answer, okay. Question, this is the mouth, it's a close-up of her. Now obviously there's enough to breathe, the nostril in here. Okay, here's another one. Moved her. Obviously, this is quite clear here. Answer, yeah. Question, and you can see her with the nose, how it's bent, like it was pushed into the pillow. She's too far in the pillow. Moving to page 212, line 1. Question, so I've got these straight here because I've got them all different. I wanted to show you one more here. Maybe I don't have the one that's real. Answer, I see what you mean by the arm underneath there. Question, yeah, that was the other thing that I wanted to. Those are the questions and answers at pages 211 and 212.
Yes.
And so in Exhibit 142, there are a number of questions asked by Detective Ratsberg in which there's discussion about the nose being pushed in the pillow, right?
Yes.
About there being some pressure on the chest, right?
Yes, or contact, we'll say.
And there was discussion of contact with the neck too, correct?
Yes,
And those things were also contained in Aaron Dillard's statement, true?
yes.
Let me ask you some more questions about the nose in this case. In the autopsy protocol, Dr. Chambliss says that the nose is midline, correct?
Yes, he does.
That means what? It's regular, straight?
Yes, it's kind of a, I don't know how to describe it, kind of just an automatic statement that, you know, if you've got an autopsy protocol, that if there's a way that you dictate a case, you know, that'll just go in there, you know, without thinking automatically.
Although if there's some injury to the nose, then that's something that should be noted in the autopsy report, correct?
One would hope so.
Well, and you're placing credence on all sorts of portions of Dr. Chambliss's autopsy report, correct?
Yes.
Is there any reason why you don't want to credit that part of the autopsy report as well?
Perhaps he didn't consider the, well, there are two things. Perhaps he didn't consider the state of the nose significant at the time he was dictating. Perhaps prior to autopsy, it kind of went back the way it was before.
And that could happen, correct? As the nose could go back?
Yes,
But that would be a temporary situation that was depicted in that photograph?
possibly, yes.
And that there wasn't any severe injury that would cause it to stay in that position, true?
There was, the only thing that would cause something to stay that way, I think, would be, had it been there for a long time, or had bones been broken.
And certainly something that a medical examiner looks for is broken bones, right?
Yes.
I mean, like the thing the photograph you showed us with the hemorrhage in the ribs, that's a very small amount of hemorrhage, true?
True.
I mean, you're trained, and Dr. Chambliss is trained to look for very detailed types of observations, correct?
I don't know how Dr. Chambliss is trained, but that's how I was trained. I can't speak for how he was trained.
Do you know if he's board certified?
I do not.
You do not know one way or another?
No, I don't.
You understand that he had been medical examiner in Washington County?
Yes.
I mean, are you aware of any medical training anywhere where a pathologist, forensic pathologist, would not be taught to look for look for details?
Well, there are some good training programs and there are some not so good training programs, so I can't really speak for every training program in the country.
Okay, so Dr. Chambliss may not have been well trained.
I'm not, I hate to make that leap. All I want to say is I don't know what he was trained, how he was trained.
Can you imagine any sort of training where the pathologist would not be trained to identify a broken nose?
Objection's irrelevant. Broken nose in this case, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well, you're questioning whether there's something wrong with the nose possibly that's not noted in the report, right?
I'm not questioning anything.
So you don't dispute that the nose was midline and that that's an accurate representation in Dr. Chambliss's report?
I don't think that's what I said. I think that he may have seen something and not thought it significant. A lot of times people are found dead face down, and, their nose is kind of shoved over one way or another. Perhaps we don't consider that significant. It's something that I could see somebody overlooking, dictating an autopsy.
Well, what you're saying is it wouldn't be unusual for a nose to be pushed to the side if a person's found face down, correct?
No, correct.
It is correct. Just a person being face down can cause their nose to be shifted to one side, correct?
Yes, it can.
And that would show up in initial photographs at the scene, correct?
Yes.
I mean, is it fair to say, let me just see if I understand this. I mean, I've been hitting the nose very hard playing basketball where my nose goes to the side. It doesn't stay like that, right?
Right.
I mean, the cartilage in the nose is pretty pliable.
Yes, it is.
And it bounces back, correct?
Yeah, when you're alive.
Okay. And if it's broken or something like that, then you might have some problem that would keep it bent. I take
Yes.
it. And the force that takes it to move it like it was in Julie Jensen's picture, I mean, it takes very little force at all to move your nose to the side, true?
I'm really not certain exactly how much force it takes. I mean, it would certainly weight of the head. But then we've got to consider the surface that she's lying on and all kinds of other variables. So,
Well, if you take your finger right now and move your nostril over to the side, can you tell me, does that take a lot of force or a little force?
No, it doesn't.
It just takes a little force, right?
Yes.
The kind of force that if you're face down in the side, correct?
Possibly.
And then if somebody's dying, it could stay like that for some temporary period of time and then bounce back, right?
Possibly, yes.
That wouldn't require any severe mashing kind of force to move the nose over to the side like that.
Not necessarily, no.
You were asked, well, let me talk about, I think, three different things. I had asked you on Friday about an officer's observation of the eye being open, and he thought that might be significant, and you did not believe that was significant, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Jamboys asked you on redirect about a similar kind of question, is whether the eye would be open if somebody died in their sleep.
Correct.
And you said, yeah, that can easily happen, that their eyes will be open even though they died in their sleep.
Yes.
The other thing is, you were asked by Mr. Jamboys if that arm position suggested to you that the body had been moved on top of the arm, and my recollection is you indicated that people sleep in weird ways, and you could see somebody sleeping like.
But I do remember I remember saying that people sleep in strange ways.
Do you recall that was asked in conjunction with that photograph showing Julie Jensen's hand underneath her body and off the bed?
Yeah, I just don't remember the whole context. I remember giving that answer, but I don't remember the context.
And what that shows is these questions about the eyes, whether they can be open if a person dies in their sleep, whether an officer's observation of the eye looking like it was bulging out, and the question about the arm position is sometimes things seem a person, an experienced medical examiner knows, well, that's really not necessarily so unusual in death.
That's fair to say.
And to some extent, the nose could be one of those kind of things too, right?
Possibly.
With respect to the arm, Dr. Mainland, did you by any chance try to lay down to recreate that position in the photo?
Actually, I did.
And was that uncomfortable to you?
Kind of.
And do you think it would be a position somebody couldn't sleep in?
No, I think a person could sleep that way. People don't usually get rib hemorrhages from sleeping on their arm. But, I mean, a person could sleep that way.
Sure, but you've acknowledged that rib injury could be post-mortem artifact, right?
I did. I didn't say what my opinion was about it. Well, I guess I did say that it was my opinion that it was not, but I did acknowledge that it could be.
Well, when I questioned you back in July, you acknowledged that it could be post-mortem artifact, right?
Yes.
You acknowledged that that's something that could happen when the body was moved after death, right?
Yes, I think I remember saying that it wasn't all that likely, but it was possible.
And it's also possible that that's an injury that Julie Jensen got from bumping into something or having her kids jump on her or innumerable kind of things that would cause a small amount of hemorrhage in the rib area.
I think I said that too, that I didn't consider them all that likely, but possibilities.
Well, the fact is, if you're trying to speculate as to what might cause that injury and you were just taking a guess, nothing in and of itself is that likely. True?
What do you mean? Okay, I don't know what your question means. Nothing in and of itself. No, we take things in context.
Well, I mean, if I don't know whether or not her kids were jumping on her, I don't know whether or not she bumped into a countertop with her ribs. I mean, if I'm just guessing at all the things that could have happened to her, any one of those things isn't particularly likely in and of itself to have caused that damage, right?
Right.
I mean, but there are all sorts of things that could have happened to her in the last day or two of her life that might cause a small amount of hemorrhage in the ribs, right?
There are, and some explanations are more plausible than others.
Well, you've been given some explanation by this Aaron Dillard character, right?
Yes.
And so that's the only specific information you have, right?
Regarding what?
Regarding a possible source of the rib injury, right?
No, actually, I mean, it's been described in this big interview with Detective Ratsberg. I just kind of didn't connect the two at the time.
Right, Detective Ratsberg, but Detective Ratsberg was just reporting what was in Dr. Chambliss's report, right?
Correct. He didn't.
I mean, Mark Jensen never said anywhere in there that he did something to the ribs, right?
Well, if you sit on somebody's chest.
No, I'm talking about Detective Ratsberg's interview. Mark Jensen never says in that interview that he sat on her chest.
Objection calls for hearsay, Your Honor.
I don't recall him saying that he sat on her chest in the interview.
Especially in light of the answer which has been given, the objection is overruled.
Okay, did you get that? You need me to answer again? Okay.
Did you get the answer? Okay.
The injury to the, is it the hypopharyngeal larynx?
Hypopharyngeal soft tissue.
And my understanding, I think the question I asked is that's the area, if you looked in the mirror with your mouth wide open, would be just below where you can see, correct?
Yes.
And so, I mean, is that an injury on the interior?
What do you mean by interior?
Well, that is, if I wanted to intentionally cause that injury to myself, would it be by putting something down my throat?
You could do it that way.
Or what other way?
By pushing and pushing your larynx against something.
Okay. And did you see anything there in this case that the larynx would have been pushed against?
At the scene.
Photos?
The pillow, perhaps?
Back in the pillow all the time. There's nothing hard there that would cause any kind of injury, is there?
Not just by laying there, no.
Or even by being pushed onto a pillow as opposed to any kind of hard object.
If Depends on how hard the person was pushed.
But that would seem to be a pretty unlikely source of that injury, correct?
I think, I said that I think that the injury is non-specific. It could be caused by that, it might not be.
Postmortem artifact would also account for that, correct?
Yes, for what you're talking about, the hypopharyngeal hemorrhage.
Right, because that's more of an interior kind of injury, right? I mean, it's on the front, not the back. You wouldn't. I just want to make sure there's no misimpression. A blow to the back of the neck, in and of itself, wouldn't cause the injury to the hypopharyngeal larynx.
It shouldn't.
Okay. I think maybe I misunderstood you on redirect. So I mean, if I had a blow back here, that shouldn't, unless this is pushed into anything, into something, I wouldn't have an injury in the hypopharyngeal larynx area.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess I would say I would doubt it.
And you do see those hemorrhages in the neck. Those are, you see those pretty regularly in the postmortem, right?
Fairly regular.
That is, you may see those with somebody who has a heart attack or dies of cancer, anything, right?
It's possible.
In reviewing Dr. Shamliss's autopsy report, there's no indication that he even collected the gastric contents, true?
I think I talked about it. He does not say that in there, and I think during the summer I kind of testified that I thought it was simply an honest mistake, but he does not. It is not in the report.
Is there, you've reviewed all your records in your medical examiner's office regarding this case, right?
Yes.
Is there some other record somewhere that says that the gastric contents were actually collected and preserved?
I infer that because gastric contents with Julie Jensen's name on the label were received by an outside laboratory. It's not in the autopsy protocol.
Is there any paperwork in your office whatsoever indicating that those were collected?
Yeah, that's, like I just said, there's paperwork that shows a photocopy of the label with Julie Jensen's name on it.
That's something that St. Louis has.
I think that particular piece of paper came from NMS. I can double check if you'd like.
Okay. There have been occasions where laboratories or medical examiners' offices have sent off specimens from some other person.
I'm sure there have been in the world.
But that's why you have this chain of custody, why you have these documents, correct?
Correct.
Because you don't want to make that kind of mistake, true?
Yes.
And the chain of custody is also sort of a checks and balances kind of situation where you want to have paperwork on both ends of the transfer, correct?
It's fair to say.
So you can compare what was received with what was sent and make sure that there wasn't a mix-up in the process?
That's fair to say.
And in this case, we can't compare what was sent out with what was received because we don't have any paperwork about what was sent out, right?
I've got to check something. I'm not quite, there might be something else. Let me just, give me a second, please.
Sure.
What I'm looking for, I'm not finding this second.
Well, feel free to take the time tonight and see if there's something, and we'll start out tomorrow, and you let me
Sure.
know if you have some piece of paper that says that.
Sure.
All right, we'll stop at this point. Please don't talk about the case. We'll see you at 8:55 tomorrow. Enjoy the evening.